Hello and welcome to the video lecture on client-server systems and application partitioning. So when we talk about client-server systems, we're talking about the typical corporate environment, internal corporate environment. The corporation is going to have a server system set up, usually a server farm, which is comprised of multiple servers. These days, a lot of the servers are virtualized. So we've got a fairly complex what I'm going to refer to as a back-end system, where all of the data is being stored, all of the database management systems are, where all the storage systems are. So we've got this huge server system. Just as huge is the client side of the system. What I'm going to refer to as the other side of the network, the front end of this system, right? So we've got this huge system in the back end. We've got storage, and we've got processing. On the client end, we've got display and processing. So that there's a little bit of both going on both sides. Obviously, it requires a fairly sophisticated networked model. We've got switches and bridges and all sorts of stuff, routers, connecting all of these clients to all of these servers. Easier to think about this as maybe one freestanding building. Maybe it's easier to think of it with all the servers in the basement, and everybody working in the upper floors. As I said, the processing, the capture and manipulation of data, the processing associated with that is usually shared somewhat. And we'll talk about it in another slide, but the balance of where the processing is three different models. So usually you got a client workstation, and in today's business environment, it's usually a PC. We've got a lot more Macs popping up out there, but for the most part, American businesses have primarily clients or PCs. And those PCs request and use services that are provided by server systems. The server, on the other end, are big. They could be right down to a PC. A PC can serve as a server. You can have mini servers, you can have mainframe servers. A lot of people have a misconception that mainframe computers are on their way out. There is no truth to that whatsoever. As a matter of fact, the IBM Z series is a very popular, very powerful mainframe system that is nowhere near the end of its life. And for the database management system, the server is where the database server is going to be, somewhere in the back-end server system. Then we talk about the actual application logic. So there's the presentation logic, the GUI interface that the user is going to deal with. You're going to present the user with their data in some kind of organized graphical interface. Consisting, it could be pictures, very complicated data entry forms. There are inputs and there are outputs. Then there's processing logic, where most of that really is business rules, whether or not there is an input-output process, which anytime we talk about input-output, there's some kind of network traffic. We've got business rules. We talked about business rules in IT 117, so the processing logic is where those business rules are going to lie for the most part. We've got some data management going on. Data management could be triggers and functions and procedures and all that kind of stuff. Actually, I shouldn't say triggers, mostly procedures and functions, although you can have triggers fire on the front end. And then you have storage logic. And the reason I try to avoid using the triggers, although they can be used on the front end, for the most part, you should associate triggers with events that are happening on a table. And then there's storage logic, which is what's going on in the database management system. So that's data storage, data retrieval, backing up, recovery, all that kind of stuff. So then we talk about application partitioning, and this is where we're talking about the amount of processing that's either done on the client side or that's done on the server side. So it's actually the place where the application code gets executed. The reason you slide it one way or the other is based on performance, improved interoperability, and balanced workloads. So sometimes it makes more sense to put the processing on the front end with the client to reduce network traffic. Other times it's better to put everything on the back end and let the servers handle all that. And what we see are basically 3 different logic distributions. And in this case, we're talking about the 2-tier, right? We only got clients and servers. So when you have a fat client, your fat client is doing a lot of the processing logic. So, well, all the processing logic, all the presentation logic happens at the client, and the only thing that's happening in the back end is storage logic. When you get to a thin client, all of the processing logic and all the storage logic is on the server end. The client really is simply just presentation logic. And then you get into what's mostly the most common is distributed, where the processing logic to some extent is balanced between some happening on the server, some happening on the client. And that, for the most part, is the end of my video lecture on client-server systems and application partitioning.